town of Jesus' birth has festively opened the season of Advent with the solemn entry of Father Pierbattista Pizzaballa, Custos of the Holy Land. The Pope of the Coptic Orthodox Church, Tawadros II, visits Israel for the funeral of Archbishop Abraham. 2 weeks of training by the FRIARS of the custody of the Holy Land in order to learn the history of the holy sites and be able to guide future pilgrims. On November 22nd, the 20 best students of the Magnificat Institute performed in the traditional annual music concert at the Mormon University in Jerusalem. A biblical institute in the heart of Jerusalem, a television series to tell the story of the archaeological discoveries of the holy places. The town of Jesus' birth has festively opened the season of Advent with the solemn entry of Father Pierbattista Pizzaballa, Custos of the Holy Land. After being welcomed by the civil and religious authorities in Manger Square, Father Pizzaballa entered the Basilica of the Nativity and the Basilica of Santa Caterina, where they celebrated the first Vespers. The Franciscans and the faithful gathered for a weekend fully dedicated to the liturgy. The friars walked in procession into the Grotto of the Nativity, where the first candle of the Advent wreath was lit. The day began in the morning of Saturday, November 28th, with a pilgrimage from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. The Christians of the Franciscan parishes of the two communities met at the monastery of Mar Elias and then walked the few kilometers that separate the two biblical cities. Today, a wall separates the two towns. For the Israelis, it is a security wall. For the Palestinians, a separation wall. Father Pierbattista Pizzaballa believes that it is important to walk through this ancient route in the face of all the problems that hurt the geography and the history of this country. There still is a traditional and historical aspect that prevails as a symbolic sign of continuity, besides the fact that the roots of this country are strong and will remain despite everything.
La parroquia di Gerusalemme.
Every year, the parish of Jerusalem escorts the Custos of the Holy Land in his entry to the feast of St. Catherine in the beginning of Advent, and this is a privilege of our parish of Jerusalem.
La parroquia di Gerusalemme.
The city of Bethlehem is also preparing to receive the pilgrims now through Christmas. Sunday, November 29th, the Mass for the Feast of St. Catherine was celebrated with the local community and with the pilgrims.
Io lo immagino come
I see the pilgrims of the Holy Land as the three wise men who came to Bethlehem. The pilgrims represent those who came to greet the child, Jesus. For this reason, I wish that all the pilgrims arriving in the Holy Land may experience the same journey the wise men did, and that they may return home with faith and joy. Jerusalem paid its last respects to Abba Abraham, Coptic Archbishop of the city and the Near East. The funeral was celebrated on Saturday, November 28th in the monastery of St. Anthony, a stone's throw from the Basilica of the Holy Sepulchre. Several participants, religions and nationalities were present to pay tribute to a man loved and respected for his simplicity and his continued desire for unity. The news of the death of Abraham caught us by surprise. Last Thursday, we, Catholics and Christians of Jerusalem, lost a friend who was joyful, who used to lighten up difficult times, who always built bridges between the different parties. He was humble and simple. He was just blessed with an evangelical simplicity. His personality and his behavior stemmed from a strong faith and from his love for Christ and for his brothers. That is why we highly respected him.
The Archbishop was a very exceptional person because even without being part of a doctrinal understanding, it was intuitive in him to approach people. He was hosting people, students, leaders. laymen. Jewish people came here, meeting Muslims and Christians. He was a very lovable and yet a very articulated and profound person. So this combination of being humane and articulated and theologically on a high level, this was a very special, and we are here to pay respect to that.
The Coptic Orthodox Patriarch Tawadros II also arrived in Jerusalem for the occasion from Egypt on Thursday, November 26. This is the first trip to the Holy City by a Coptic pope since the ban on Copts visiting Jerusalem issued in 1979 because of issues related to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It was not an official visit, but a gesture of affection and closeness to a dear friend and to the most important bishopric besides the one in Alexandria. A human and spiritual duty to the entire community, as pointed out by the Pope himself, whose arrival was greeted with great celebration and surprise. We, the Coptic community in Jerusalem, are very happy of the visit of the Pope and the bishops, because we are part of the Coptic Church, whose supreme leader is Pope Tawadros. Pope Tawadros is a welcoming leader. He wants unity. He wants all the churches to unite. I believe that this step will help the churches to unite and will especially encourage the unity of all the churches in the Holy Land, which is very important for the Holy Land in its current historical moment. The Coptic Pope's visit was an opportunity to discover that the unity between the different religious communities is not a utopia, but a possible reality instead. No one can find a solution on their own. We have to find a common path by overcoming our legitimate differences in history, culture, and traditions. But there is something that unites us deeply, that must unite us all, our common faith and our love for Jesus Christ. It is He who keeps us together. Jesus made us a promise and told us, "In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. I am with you always until the end of the world. He will not leave you." There is a mountain of things to discover and explain. With these words, Father Narcisio, a Franciscan friar from the custody of the Holy Land, who has lived in Jerusalem for almost 30 years, greeted the friars who participate in the course for spiritual animators of pilgrimages, sponsored by the Studium Biblicum Franciscanum. 17 people, among which are commissioners, participated in the 2-week training and revision in order to get to know the sacred places, as well as the sanctuaries and the history of the Holy Land very closely, under the expert guidance of the friars of the custody, to be able to guide the future pilgrims. I've been organizing pilgrimages for many years now. This is the 15th time I have come to the Holy Land. This course allows me to participate more directly as a spiritual chaperone of the pilgrimage. Therefore, I am able to truly appreciate this journey with a greater awareness as a result of a greater training. I have discovered a lot of new things that I did not know about sites that I have already visited or had only heard about. And the most beautiful thing is to have had this long time to go to these places, stop, look, and listen to what these stones still communicate. The course was intense and diverse. The participant friars visited the main archaeological and religious sites in the Holy Land, from Nazareth to Capernaum, from the Sea of Galilee to Bethlehem, where the Custos made his solemn entrance at the opening of Advent. The journey combined religious, archaeological, and historical aspects in the certainty that each of them will be a valuable contribution to the search for truth. Through these historical evidences and descriptions confirmed by archaeology, we are certain, for example, with regard to the sanctuaries that we can visit today, of their exact location and approximate appearance, especially the first buildings in the time of Constantine in the early 4th century, in particular the Holy Sepulchre, Bethlehem, and the Mount of Olives. For the pilgrims arriving in the Holy Land, it is important to see these remains because they are a confirmation of authenticity. It means that we really are at the site where everything that Christ did was handed down. At the end of the course, the historical approach was analyzed in depth thanks to Father Narcissio's lessons. The friar told those present of the birth and evolution of Christianity in the Holy Land since the year zero, showing them some unique documents, a register of pilgrims and one of the conversions of 1500, a book of the records handwritten by monks from 1230 until the edict issued by Pope Clement VI in 1342. Let's divide the main history of the Holy Land into three parts. The first is the Old One, which starts from the period immediately after Jesus Christ with the apostles and the Jewish Christians until the arrival of the first buildings and pagan shrines. The second period begins with the arrival of Muslims and ends with the Crusades, when the Holy Land was recovered by Christians. I call the third period Franciscan because at this time we, the Franciscans, were practically the only ones present here in the Holy Land from 1342, when the custody of the Holy Land is listed as the official protector of the holy places by the Vatican. A wise and concrete group which led participants to see firsthand the places that Pope Paul VI defined the fifth gospel.
Musical evening at the Mormon University in Jerusalem. The 20 best students of the Magnificat Institute, the music school of the custody of the Holy Land, performed in the traditional concert assembled for years on the Mount of Olives.
For the last 6 years, the Mormons welcomed us in this wonderful theater. So for our kids, for the kids of the Magnificat, for our students, it's a great opportunity to perform on a real stage in front of a real theater. I mean, the place is wonderful, it's awesome, so it gives them motivation.
Facing the beautiful view of the Holy City, the students played various instruments beautifully, showing the audience the richness and uniqueness of the school of music that unites Israelis and Palestinians, Muslims, Christians, and Jews.
The Magnificat Institute offers several musical courses, including violin, piano, and children and adult choirs. It was a wonderful evening. It was truly magnificent. The reason why we choose this place is that every year we organize a concert due to an agreement between the Magnificat and the Mormon University. They invite us to perform in concert, so we choose the best students in the choirs of the Magnificat. During the year, we sing in different places, and we also prepare the midnight mass in the Church of the Nativity with the chorus of Jasmine, the one who sang today, together with that of the custody of the Holy Land.
The girls of the Jasmine Choir concluded the musical evening with great success and emotion.
Through the magazine Holy Land in Portuguese and the Christian Media Center, the history of the Studium Biblicum Franciscanum will be told in 25 episodes, with a written and photographic archive of all the different events in time, especially through witnesses. The Studium Biblicum Franciscanum has a balcony where we are right now. It is a beautiful sight. From here, we are able to see all the main memories of the passage of Jesus in Jerusalem. The series tells the story of the excavations and archaeological discoveries, a scientific institution for research and academic teaching of the Holy Scripture and archaeology of the Bible. The Studium Biblicum Franciscanum has always had a dual personality, research and teaching. As a research center, it is dedicated to the study of biblical archaeology, particularly to the discovery of the holy places of the New Testament and the discovery of the early church in the Holy Land and in the Middle East, as well as to the study of literary sources. The Christian Media Center recorded the biblical tours constituting a qualifying time of preparation offered to the students of biblical studies. The purpose of these biblical excursions is to familiarize students with the different regions and biblical sites. The biblical and archaeological excursions are necessary to be able to obtain familiarity with the place and to get to know the entire setting in which the events occurred. These are the events we study in the books. The Studium Biblicum Franciscanum conducts biblical research in historical, exegetical, theological, linguistic, and environmental aspects. The instructional activities emphasize the biblical languages and the personal and prolonged contact with the Oriental biblical world. A student of sacred scriptures cannot read texts in the original languages. This applies to both the Hebrew language and to the Greek language. The person who really wants to learn the Bible or wants to deepen the study of the Bible must make the effort to learn the biblical languages, which are Hebrew for the Old Testament and Greek for the New Testament. In addition to Hebrew and Greek, the Institute also offers the course of Aramaic. The first important aspect of Aramaic is the fact that some Old Testament texts are written in Aramaic as part of the book of Daniel and Ezra. Therefore, students have to study biblical Aramaic to be able to understand this part of the Bible. In addition to that, Aramaic is very important because it was the language of Jesus. We know that Aramaic was definitely one of the languages that Jesus spoke.
Penso così che tutti serviamo.
I believe that we all serve the cause of the gospel. This means we have to let people know that faith has nothing to fear. Truly in the Holy Land there are still traces of God's passage, and especially of Jesus and the Apostolic Church. We think that science and faith work together, and they are the characteristics of man and mankind. The Studium Biblicum Franciscanum, a biblical institute in the heart of Jerusalem, a series that will air on all major Christian channels, as well as in the Holy Land magazine in Portuguese and in the site of the Custody of the Holy Land. Terra Santa News is a production of the Christian Media Center in Jerusalem, Holy Land. For more information about Terra Santa News and the Christian Media Center, please check out our website at the bottom of the screen. You'll also be able to subscribe to our newsletter, to view live video feeds from the Holy Land, as well as visit our Facebook and YouTube pages and follow our Twitter feed. Come visit the website of Terra Santa News.